Really? Job.
Will do.
worth it. Drop! I fear we've lost the angry one.
Dear God, man. It was really tough.
That's the servant down, and the mistress still to go. A good start, worthy of being built upon.
In his own way, Thaos must have truly believed he was caring for the people of Eora, protecting them from themselves. A shame his soul won't have a chance to reflect on his errors before it enters the wheel.
What changed on this attempt compared to the previous one? Aside from me juking him all over the spot until I killed those Woodica statues, I also tried to reduce his resist this time instead of buffing myself and everyone around. So I reduced his defenses. I was keeping all of the spells to reduce his defenses so I can actually hit him. Because I've seen like 4%, 6% to hit. On the previous try was like, holy shit, let's get it at least on 20% to hit. No matter with whom, at least on 20. And for that I needed Durance alive. So he can do that shit and a lot to reduce his defenses. And I had to cast against Confusion, AoE. Because if he casts Confusion, the fight is literally over. And Alot had to have Bulwark, so he cannot get one-shotted. But he is definitely, out of all big bosses in a game, out of the Double Dragons and Langrat, out of the, I don't know, Kraken, Radiant Spore, Alpine Dragon, Adra Dragon, Sky Dragon, all of the main bosses, Thaos is definitely the hardest one on upscaling Pot of the Damned. And I would say after Thaos, it would be Kaoto, Hayabot Kaoto, as the second hardest fight. The third would be the Radiant Spore. The fourth would be the Spores in Odd Nua, Mushrooms in Odd Nua. And then I would say the fifth fight would be Lengrad, but for me it was quite easy because of the wall. But definitely Thaos is the hardest fight. fitting the final boss, yeah. Kraken was the most disappointing fight in a game, because it's the final boss of the DLC. It should have been as strong as Thaos. Yeah. So he goes into top 5, but it's not even in top 20 fights. It's not even in top 50 fights in a game. Kraken fight. That's how easy it was. But Thaos is easily the hardest. And definitely closely followed by Kaoto, because it took me like 3 attempts on Thaos. And it took me 3 attempts on Hayabot Kaoto. Those monks are fucking nuts. Although I only used 1 consumable. Probably the fight is a bit easier if you use all consumables, because you got 4 slots. That's 24 consumables. So I guess then it's way much easier. This is without consumables. I know that consumables are important. I'm trying to do it literally without, and I did. Okay, like 99.99% of content without consumables. Yeah. I never used Chill Fog. Didn't have time to use Chill Fog. All in all, great fight. Can it be easier than this? Yeah. If you cast enough. And if you use enough consumables. But I'm keeping this result without.
Some point, you have to look at the things your god is telling you to do. And ask yourself if it's worth it.
All those lives. And at the end of them, he was no better than the very people he sought to guide. A pity.
Can't help but feel sorry for him. To live so long without a fresh start, with no chance to wonder what's around the corner.
We're in Thaos Soul. Return him to the cycle. You will remember this. Remember that no man can hide the truth forever, and all you've done was done in futility. Your memory shall be your penance. I do not envy you. I, of all people, realize the sway of memories can hold. It is the time you were granted peace. What are the consequences here with Thaos for Pillars 2? Anyone knows the consequences, so I'll know what to pick now for the Pillars 2 save. Banish his soul. There can be no forgiveness for your deeds, only justice. You shall escape judgment no longer. Destroy all memories contained within. Your memory makes you a slave to your own past. Perhaps it can be undone, but it can be forgotten. I shall trouble neither of us any longer. You caused me great suffering. You do not deserve to exist. Tear his soul apart. I mean, he is like extremely evil. So he does deserve some fitting punishment. Tear his soul apart. You do not deserve to exist. You reach out for his soul, you can feel its frailty in defeat, its texture like a coarse and threadbare cloth on the brink of disintegration. You insinuate yourself between the threads, pushing the weaving part, unraveling the stitching until it's bereft of structure, a formless heap bound together by nothing at all. The idea is shatter. You concentrate, you feel a force building within your soul, an outward pressure that strains against containment, threatening to rupture your spirit. When you can contain it no more, you transfer it to Thaos soul all at once and release it there, a detonation of will that expands in all directions, driving out the remnants of his essence, scattering it into nothingness. You can feel his presence no more. In the stillness that follows, a single word echoes through your mind, a word you spoke when you were one with Thaos in ancient memory. You realize it is the word that activates the machine.
Indeed.
Well?
Astounding. I always knew the leaden key stood for something big, but I didn't quite realize what I'd gotten myself into. And now, you're in the middle of something even bigger. With a decision that will affect millions.
Just take a piss. Let's see the epilogue. It was a phenomenal game.
This is beyond either of us. The certainty of the gods is a mercy. Power like this is a heavy burden. Just look at how it crushed Thaos. Perhaps he was right to surrender it to Werglia.
Thaos was wrong.
It's your decision, of course. And whatever you decide, I'm glad our paths crossed in Gilded Vale.
Thaos, he had hold of your soul from a long time back, seems like. You get what you needed from him?
I got justice.
Not many can say that these days. Not with the gods using the world to settle their problems. You'll be feeling better soon then. Good. That's real good. You got it figured out what you're going to do about all that? Not yet. Got a lot of people out there thinking they've been abandoned by their gods. There's not much that'll put the fear in you more than that. You can take my word for it. If it was in my power, and I know it's not, but if it was, I'd find a way to give them the courage to face it. Not because they think there's some god looking out for them, but because they've just got it in them. And after what you've been through, though, I'm sure you got your own ideas. Better make it good.
So much for Thaos, then. Now you have a chance to set things right. Back to the proper order of things. It will take the Deerwood generations to recover. But at least these souls will find their way back to the wheel, as it should be.
Ah, the end of the road greets us at last. You fared well, Watcher. Better than any Watcher has right to. Seems you were a field in need of a flame's cleansing. Would that my own trial had produced such an outcome. I had figured myself for the field all this time. But you were the field, and I the darkness. A lesson neither of Durance nor of Margarin. But with that trial's end, a new one begins. A god's trial. And I will stand in judgment without mercy.
Who killed Thaos? He doesn't say.
What is it?
Maybe a summon. The end. Speak the command to activate the machine. Send the souls back into the reincarnation cycle. Return the souls to the bodies they were intended for. Entropically disintegrate the souls, ending their existence. Distribute the essence to existing souls in Deerwood to strengthen them. Disperse the souls to an unknown location. Unknown location is Vale. Existing souls, to strengthen them, is that god of hunt, Galavain. Disintegrate the souls. What would that be? Vudika. Return the souls to the bodies they were intended for is Hilea. Or Berat. Hilea is send the souls back in the reincarnation cycle. Return to will is Berat, eh? Return to bodies is Hilea. And what I gain for Pillars 2 depends on a choice. Return the souls to the bodies they were intended for. Are you sure that send the souls back is Hilea and return the souls to the bodies they were intended for is Berat, or it's vice versa? I'll pick one out of those two, but what is what? Reincarnation is Berat. Reincarnation is Berat. Uh-huh. Let's go with reincarnation.
At your command, the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Thaos used to enter Sun and Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Thaos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Deerwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the lost souls of the Hollowborn were funneled back into the churn of Bareth's wheel to find their way into new vessels and partake in the life they had been denied during Whiterun's legacy. Though parents of Hollowborn would remain just that, the end of Whiterun's legacy would bring about a spate of new, healthy births, with many of the infants bearing souls once meant for Hollowborn children. The natural cycle of life and death had been restored to Deerwood, and with it came a renewed faith in the providence of the gods. Helia, who had expected the souls to be returned to the Hollowborn, was infuriated by your duplicity. The goddess of motherhood demanded new births in compensation, and made a bargain with Bereth to trade death for new life. The skies of Deerwood darkened, blotted with swarms of birds and other winged creatures, called together to claim what the Sky Mother believed to be hers by right. For months, the people of Deerwood were forced to stay under shelter for fear of the vicious, unexplained attacks from the sky. The incidents left entire villages decimated and littered the streets of Defiance Bay with corpses covered in 1,000 puncture wounds. Lord Radric's zeal had brought him back to life once, but it would not do so again. Radric's destruction at your hands spelled the end of his suffocating rule over Gilded Vale and the surrounding area. In his absence, the village prospered, becoming a popular destination for new settlers anxious to leave Defiance Bay after the riots. Without a nearby ruler, it also grew more wild, with many settlers moving on as soon as they'd arrived, turned off by lawlessness that was excessive even by Deerwooden standards. Nevertheless, despite the challenges of living there, Gilded Vale had survived, and would continue to survive for the foreseeable future. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But order was soon re-established by the Knights of the Crucible, who, despite their depleted numbers, had gained favor in the public eye for their role in unraveling Whiterun's legacy. They were quickly reinforced by returning forces from Fleetbreaker Castle. Having seen both the ills and the promise of animancy, internally the knights quietly began a more cautious exploration of the new science. Depleted in numbers but bolstered by their newly forged stock of soul-augmented weaponry and a small contingent of forged knights, the Knights of the Crucible would soon become an order few in Defiance Bay would dare to cross. But the opportunity to build upon their newfound power proved too great a temptation for the High Justice. What was at first a measured approach to animancy soon gave way to a rapid buildup of armaments. The High Justice would eventually seize control of the city for his order and place Defiance Bay under indefinite martial law. The destruction of the machine atop Ter Noaneth spelled the end of the reanimated corpses in Heritage Hill. Though at first few were willing to venture into the abandoned district, it was soon cleaned out and rebuilt. The district's horrors still fresh in people's minds, it would be some time before it was fully repopulated. But eventually the lure of cheap prime land would all but erase the memory. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay, and few animancers survived the first day. Many Deerwoodens took the end of Widewind's legacy as a sign, both that the gods did not approve of animancy, and that the purging of animancers in Defiance Bay had been enough to satisfy them. In time, their rage would subside, and a number of surviving animancers remained in and around Defiance Bay, often taking to the wilds to practice their science without repercussions. Abidun's renewal brought new vigor and purpose to a god long known for quiet, steady labor. Handicraft saw a revival in the Deerwood, and no smith wanted for an apprentice. Additionally, Abidun's restored interest in preservation led to redoubled efforts to survey Engwithan ruins. Animancers and craftsmen alike found much to study, but tensions with Aer Glanfath rose. As for Stalwart, the Battle of Caeron's Scar only strengthened their resolve to unlock the mysteries of Durgan steel and build new marvels with the White Forge. However, Stalwart's ambitions brought them into further conflict with the Raid Serens, as more and more impoverished communities gathered at the border and vowed to finish the work of the Iron Flail. It would be many generations before the region saw peace. The Flames That Whisper clan found a cautious peace with Stalwart, particularly once the villagers heard of the aid the ogres had offered against the Eyeless. The clan moved back into the Russet Wood, and as Stalwart grew in prestige, the villagers formed a tighter alliance with their ogre neighbors. Within a generation, ogre traders visited Stalwart, and village hunters were welcome in the Russet Wood. Harmka's death had brought the Devil of Carrick little satisfaction. In time, her taste for vengeance soured. What replaced it was a hunger to feel something, anything, new. Summer had thinned the snowpack twice over when she felt the joint at her elbow first begin to stiffen. She turned her back on the hopes of animancy and civilization and walked east. She pushed through the mountains, past Raid Ceres, and into the broad plains of Ishamiddle. She had forgotten what it was like to simply journey, no goal or destination in mind. Though she felt nothing more than the steady thump of her feet on the road, the endless horizons and grassy meadows were new to her. She measured her time in the gradual rusting of her body and was satisfied. Her movements slowed, but so did the world around her. Waist-high grasses undulated intact in the wind, as gradual as the tides. Sparrows and blackjays made steady pilgrimages across the sky, each flap of their wings a solemn salute. She could hardly move when she found something she had never seen before, the ocean. With the last of her strength, she pulled herself beneath the water, content at last to feel the movement of currents and the constant caress of the waves. Zawa came to believe that the Dakan had survived through him. He returned to Ishamiddle, where he united a number of small, vulnerable tribes under the beliefs of his people. He called them Takanakin, kin of Takan, and under his tutelage, they became strong enough to resist would-be conquerors. Zawa taught his secrets not to one chosen person, but to all, that the line of knowledge might never be broken. Once Maneha had made peace with her memory, she decided the time had come to face her more recent past. For the first time in decades, she returned home to Rawatai, and she found that it had changed as much as she had. New districts had sprung up along the coast, while others withered into crumbling husks, and the streets had changed their course as surely as rivers. Her parents wept with joy at her return. They still ran the old spice shop, and in its many aromas and flavors, she found memories of the places she'd traveled and the people she'd known. She told her story, bottle by bottle, and began to build a life on the soil she knew best. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every thane and earl in Deerwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Deerwoodinians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Deerwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. After the death of the Master below, a strange quiet fell over the endless paths of Odd-Nua. The attacks on the fortress above ceased, Odd-Nua's silent titan the closest remaining thing to a master in its musty, forgotten passages. Palagina had gone against the Duke's Bell's orders by inventing a new trade arrangement with the Anamenfath to accommodate the recovering Deerwooden market. With the Deerwood's people still weakened by Weidman's legacy, the Valian republics easily pushed their would-be competitors out of the market. For her outrageous insubordination and audacity, Palagina was banished from the republics. She traveled north in the Eastern Reach, avoiding Valian ports and entering the ranks of the kind wayfarers. Despite her bravery and dedication to those in her care, her strange appearance made her feel like an outsider wherever she went. Adair chose not to return home to Gilded Vale. Still most comfortable far from cities, he settled in Deerford, which, like many towns in the Deerwood, was beginning the slow process of rebuilding. Believing now that it was the obligation of Kith to be the leaders their gods had not, Adair was soon named mayor of the town, and under his guidance, Deerford soon began to prosper. He expelled the last of the Scanites from the area and drew new settlers with the offer of land, a trick he had learned from someone he otherwise preferred to forget. With each passing day, Deerford would come to more closely resemble the Gilded Vale of Adair's childhood, the one worthy of its name. When the dust settled in sun and shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Thaos Ix Arcanon, his former master. He saw where the Grandmaster had gone wrong, and he knew what he would do better. The secret of the gods would be preserved, and with it, the sanity and well-being of all Kith. He donned the remains of Thaos' ceremonial garb and prepared himself for the long and lonely task ahead. With the Watcher's goals accomplished and his own vows fulfilled, Kanarua sailed back to Tekoa. His friends and family found him much changed, for a pall had fallen upon the man, smothering his former enthusiasm. Called before the Lore College, Kana told them of the pain the Engwithan legacy brought to the lands abroad. He insisted that a search for answers abroad could only fragment the Rawatai people, as it had done to the Deerwood. His findings were met with much respect, and Kanarua's voice came to be considered an influential one in the growing move towards Rawatai's isolation. With Thaos defeated and the souls released from sun and shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Deerwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Deerford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Deerwood, and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance used Magrin's strength only until Thaos had been cast from the world, and then, swore off her influence entirely. Regret came to weigh heavily on his mind, and a man who had never previously lacked for words or opinions came to embrace silence and contemplation. He continued to wander, penniless and destitute, searching now not for the reason for his goddess's silence, but for a mechanism for revenge. The charred robes he continued to wear as a reminder that he had been burned by his goddess, and not just by the flames of the Godhammer. Sagani experienced the 4 months of her journey back to Masuk in vivid colors. She strove to memorize every moment of her final trip through the Deerwood, Erglonfoth, the Valian Republics, and beyond, preparing to tell her village of what she had seen on her long journey. All of Masuk shared in her triumph, and she felt her pride and elation magnified by the joy of her village. Never again did she doubt the value of her sacrifices. After decades as a long hunter, Sagani finally became one of Masuk's most respected elders. She guided her community with wise counsel, and a generation after she finally passed, another huntress journeyed into the world to find her soul. For you, the death of Thaos brought an end to your waking visions, and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead.
$104. Exactly 104 hours is how long it took to finish the game. That's 103. Okay. My bad. 103. It was fun. It was really fun. And we did it all. I haven't skipped a single quest.